In many ways, Jax Teller is born in the first episode of Season 2 of Sons of Anarchy. The thing you remember this episode most for is obviously what happens to Gemma at the end of it. And it might overshadow how much foreshadowing of Jax's character we actually get in the episode. How he makes decisions for the people around him and the type of leader that he's going to become, and of course, the friction between him and Clay. This is truly an early look of how the Jax character will come to be. Welcome into Belated Binge, the podcast that allows you to relive your favorite show, Sons of Anarchy. Shout out to Harley117 from the Bonus Binge Squad on Patreon. Kicking off Season 2, you'll remember that the club is dealing with the fallout from Season 1. The impact of the ATF investigation into the club for illegal gun distribution. As a reminder, this investigation included Agent Stahl, who I would advocate is the best villain of this entire series, setting up Opie looking like he flipped on the club, turned rat. She took him and his family away in the middle of the night, didn't put him in handcuffs, which becomes key to the whole the club investigating that part of the ruse, if you want to call it that. She also paid off a bunch of his debt and placed bugs in his truck and in his phone. All the while, she's arrested Bobby for murder as part of the hit that they carried out together. One member's in jail, the other is in protective custody, and Stahl is leaking that there's a witness. It's not that hard of a jump for Clay and Tig to make that Opie's the rat. That was her plan, after all. So they put their own plan in motion to eliminate the threat from within inside the club, and it was too late to reel all that back in when Tig kills Donna by mistake. Jax knows who's responsible, and we see the friction from that throughout the entirety of this opening episode. First, in their dealings with the IRA, who are changing the arrangement for their partnership, essentially demoting Sam Crow to gun runners instead of gun distributors. The IRA claims that this is necessary because of the heat that the club has on it from the ATF. But Clay's insulted by it, and you can understand why. It completely aligns with his character of not only preferring to be the one with the upper hand in any given situation, kind of the bully, for lack of a better term, but it's also knowing that he was instrumental in establishing this gun business from the beginning. Obviously, we know that if you're rewatching the show like I am. In a way, this is his life's work, and it's being kind of taken away from him just a little bit at a time. And I think it's driving him crazy. He does not like being told that instead of being a 60% partner who gets to assemble and distribute the guns, just being what he deems as errand boys in the episode. And then on top of that, having to just take 20%. Now, Jax is able to negotiate the deal to recoup some of that revenue and getting the Irish to agree to 28% and also that they get to continue selling guns in Oakland, which is a small victory. It's not exactly a win-win, but it is a nod towards Jax developing his thinking, right? And becoming a leader. Even if he's doing a thing that he doesn't want to do in being involved in guns, he's still trying to make it the best partnership and come to the best outcome possible on the club's behalf. He's also, in these moments, not hiding his personal beef with Clay along the way. But I think he's come to this grips that he knows that there's no way to get Sam Crow out of the gun business with Clay at the head of the table. So he's stepping up now to show that he's still on board on behalf of the club, even if he's not on board with Clay in particular. It also shows up in the way that he handles plans around retaliation for Opie and how Clay and Tig need to work through pointing the blame at someone so that it doesn't get out of hand or out in general, that it was an inside job gone very, very wrong. Jax and Piney know that the Niners didn't kill Donna, as Clay and Tig had originally tried to set it up, with it being a drive-by. So throughout the episode, we see them trying to come up with a new patsy, which they land on the rival Mexican club, the Mayans. And we see Jax's animosity about this decision toward them growing as he's decided not to tell Opie the truth, and also convincing Opie's dad's Piney that it's the best thing for Opie. He even works out a deal with Deputy Hale to keep the suspicions that both of them have to themselves, and that relationship between the two of them continues to get interesting. As much as Hale hates the club, he and Jax started to find a lot of common ground, and it's really easy to see how they were setting that up between those two characters to become like a modern day Clay and Unser situation, and how it could be mutually beneficial in the long term. And that's going to continue throughout the life of season 2. All of these decisions have an escalating effect throughout the episode. From Jax confronting Clay about the truth, delivering that just chilling line to Clay in that one-on-one about Donna, whoever you put this on, make sure that they deserve to die, because the guy who actually killed Donna is out there sharing a beer with her husband. That is painful. It's like a knife being just like drove in and twisted. And he's doing this for the love of Ope while still also lying to Opie. And it's a weird juxtaposition. And it comes kind of to the forefront when they're chasing down the Mayan who Clay does decide to put the Donna murder on. And when Opie starts interrogating the dude, everyone in this moment is incredibly uncomfortable because Tig is there, Jax is there, Jax knows the truth and doesn't want Opie to find out because he thinks it's going to crush him and take away the one thing that Opie can kind of cling on to in terms of family in being the club. And then Tig also obviously knows the truth because he's the one that pulled the trigger. And Opie's trying to get this guy to confess to a murder that he didn't do. And we've got two men in the same situation trying to keep the same secret for completely different reasons. One is self-preservation, obviously. The other is some twisted form of compassion and a glimpse into the character that Jax is going to become on this show. Just always plotting, always thinking that he knows best, and always trying to manipulate the circumstances for the best outcome for whatever plan that he's working on in that moment. And in this moment, he truly believes that it's the best thing for his best friend dealing with the trauma of losing his wife to not know that the real people at fault are two men that he calls brother. If you're watching on YouTube, let me know in the comments at this point if you agree with Jax here. Is it best for Opie to think that it was someone else that killed Donna and get a false sense of retribution, avoiding the pain of that extreme betrayal? Or would it have been better for Jax to confide the truth in his best friend and just deal with whatever fallout may have come for Club, for Jax, for Opie, for all of the above? And mixed into all of this stuff, Jax also doesn't want the blowback on the club from the decision that Opie makes. When Opie carves the Anarchy symbol into that guy's chest, he decides that's not going to work. So he's going to divert the attention away from Sam Crow and onto somebody else. And the decision that he makes is to point it towards the One Niner gang. It's lies upon lies upon lies, compounding into more lies where there will be repercussions to all of them. The club throws a welcome back party for Bobby from him being released from jail, and the club finally has their first encounter with the season's new antagonist, the League of American Nationalists. Clay handles being told not to sell guns to people of color by a rich white guy in a suit about as well as, well, you can imagine that going. However, this opponent isn't one that Clay can just bully like he's used to, and it's painful watching him tell Gemma not to worry about them given what happens later in this episode. The rest of the party is just needed levity, some comic relief, they're blowing off steam. It's good for the boys as well as for the episode because things are about to get really, really heavy. It's at the party that Opie is confronted first by Piney about how he's dealing with the loss of Donna and how he hasn't been around for his kids. And this is why I personally tend to run hot and cold on Opie as a character. After being absolutely fascinated with him throughout the first season and really, really rooting for him, he starts season 2 as a sympathetic character that I want to root for, but he ends up being one that I find pretty unlikable in this particular episode. And it's because the choice that he makes, or multiple choices that he makes, that basically make him a lousy dad. Now, before you turn this off and vow to never listen or watch me again, I understand that he just lost his wife, and I can't even imagine what that would make a person feel. I hope to never go through that myself. But his children also lost their mom. And rather than making them the priority in his life, he takes off and he leaves them with their grandparents for like weeks, they say in this episode. And now he's home and he's worried about things like building a project bike to keep himself busy. Like, dude, you're a single dad now. You're going to be busy raising your kids, taking care of your children. And I understand that even someone who is a parent does need to have something that's for them as well. Every moment of your existence can't 100% be focused on your kids. You have to do something for yourself too to kind of remain sane because, parenthood is chaos. And in this fictional world of biker chaos, in this fictional situation in which this man just lost his wife and these kids lost their mother, that's going to be the ultimate turned up level of 1,000 chaos. But, he still hasn't seen his kids in weeks, and he's still pawning off school pickup. He's staying out all night and ultimately finding reasons to avoid being around his children. And that bothers me. It's always bothered me about this character, and now I just have a platform to say it out loud. And I think that Piney summed it up the best way that I possibly could. He says, it ain't your fault, and it sure as hell ain't theirs. And we only really see him show up late and sit down in the room watching them sleep at the end of the episode, which is a glimmer of hope that he does care about his kids. We can see it, but they sure haven't. In a calm before the storm moment with a heart-to-heart, surprisingly resulting in some really astute advice between Gemma and Tara. Gemma tells Tara that she's too intelligent to be with Jax if he doesn't tell her everything he's involved with the club. Advice that Tara is admittedly reluctant to accept, but ultimately follows, demanding in this tense relationship moment that Jax tell her the truth about what he was doing throughout that day. I've got mixed feelings about this. On one hand, I agree. Tara isn't stupid, and she's not the type of person who's going to be able to just turn her brain off. If she and Jax are going to continue to be together, it's hard to imagine her just pretending that she's not thinking about all the bad stuff that he could potentially be doing on a day-to-day basis. At the same time, she's a child surgeon. She's very intelligent, and she has a real life to lose if she gets caught up in something illegal. If she wants to be with Jax, and she allows herself to stay completely in the dark, she does kind of keep some semblance of plausible deniability if things go particularly wrong on a legal front. She's not an accessory if she doesn't know what's happening, right? That's kind of the idea that I'm going with here. But the moment she does know, she is. And the way that her character develops through the series, that becomes kind of the least of the issue. Still, I guess I do lean towards Gemma being right about this, as I'm not sure that Tara could deal with staying in the dark, but I am curious what you think about that. If you're watching on YouTube, let me know in the comments section. Would Tara knowing everything or knowing nothing be better for her and Jax in their longevity in their relationship? Afterwards, the episode reaches the most uncomfortable point of the entire series. We see Gemma, after being lured into a van by a woman who was pretending that her baby was choking, being assaulted by men in masks. And they turn out to be the League of American Nationalists, using this attack on her as a tactic in their efforts to get the MC to stop selling guns to the One-Niners gang and the Mayans MC and really anyone of color. It's incredibly difficult. It's hard to watch. It's hard to talk about. And quite frankly, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that particular subject because how can you? All in all, this episode's filled with tension, and it culminates in the moment that a lot of ways defines this series, like as a whole, showing that there's literally no boundary that they're unwilling to push. And I believe that this was the season, if I'm not mistaken, that Katie Sagal won like a Golden Globe or something for her performance as Gemma. And if I remember right, listening back to Reaper Reviews with Theo Rossi and Kim Coates, I think this premiere was a big reason why and had a lot of impact on the popularity of the show during its run when it was airing on TV. It's the way that Gemma portrays not just the moment of her assault in this episode, but also in the following episodes throughout this season, how she shows the turmoil that she goes through in that emotional journey and kind of like breakdown and build up essentially like that she's about to go on it's really difficult to watch, and I mean that in the absolute best way possible as a compliment to the actress that she is. And all in all, I'm just really excited to be back talking to you about Sons of Anarchy. I love this show. And if you could go ahead and leave a comment or review on whatever app that lets you do said thing that you are watching or listening to this right now, and tell me whether you agree that this episode is in a lot of ways the true birth of the Jax Teller character. There is also still a Patreon for this show. If you're so inclined and want some bonus content like my 11 chapters of a Sons of Anarchy sequel fanfiction that I was writing back in 2020 before I, started podcasting with my creative energy, it has been read aloud and uploaded to Patreon for your listening pleasure. If that's something that would be of interest to you, go ahead and become a member of the Bonus Binge Squad. Finally, and it's been way too long since I've said these words out loud. Life is short. Buy the motorcycle. But when you do, wear a helmet. Dress for the slide, not the ride. And always remember to take Belated Binge along for that ride. By clicking here.